I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Ross Beaty, Chair of Equinox Gold and Chair Emeritus at Pan American Silver. Thank you so much for being here. Great to have you.
Happy to be here again, Charlotte.
Yes, of course. I think we catch up pretty much every year here at VRIC, so really good to have you back.
My annual, Charlotte McLeod fix.
Yes, and the same for you as well for me. So I took some time to look back at our conversation last year just to remember where we were at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you were telling us it was hard not to be bullish on the precious metals, but as a contrarian, it was worrying because everyone else was bullish as well.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling now with the metals at these higher prices?
Yeah, well, I've always been a bit of a contrarian. I try to start companies when the cycle's low. I did that with, Pan American Silver. I did it with all my copper companies in the Lumina Group. And, of course, we started Equinox Gold in 2017, the end of 2017, when gold was $1,350. And I was very bullish on gold then. I was extremely optimistic it would hit $2,000. And, of course, it did that after about 5 years. And then, it sort of bounced around that price for quite a while and even came down a bit. And everybody said, well, the party's over. But I was still very bullish, and every single year since we began Equinox, starting in 2018, I've been here at this investment show, and I've been beating the drum about gold. The macro fundamentals are so good that the demand and the supply side are very, very bullish, and yet as a contrarian, inherently contrarian, I like to go against the flow. But I really can't see anything that's in the way of gold, even though gold is blowing through $5,000 today. It's just, just amazing. I almost said ridiculous, and it is ridiculous because in my career, I never expected to see $5,000 gold ore. Silver is even more insane. It's $106 today. It's blew through $100 on Friday. Those numbers are just really, truly bubble territory. And so I have to say, even though on the gold side, I'm still pretty bullish. I think the fundamentals are so strong, and we really are in a different world today. Fundamentally about the global view about the U.S. dollar. That is so bullish for gold. It's very hard to take a contrarian view on gold, but it's rather easy on silver because silver is an industrial metal. And this price will definitely hit demand and cause buyers strike, and I think a significant correction when it comes. But even if it comes and halves what it is today, you're looking at $50 silver, which is still phenomenal for the silver producers. It's just great. But, the problem is the higher the price, the more, demand destruction will happen, and that's not so good long term. I think silver.
Yeah. So we've got two different pathways to kind of unpack here, and maybe I'll continue with gold for a little bit. So gold in that bubble territory, but you're feeling bullish still. And I think when people hear bubble, they get a little bit nervous.
Yeah, they should be nervous. And in fact, if people are long gold or long gold stocks, they should be thinking about taking some money off the table. The market has run in a phenomenal way. It's just a smart thing to do, but it's definitely not a sort of sell everything market right now. We're really in, I think it's been stimulated by both the election of President Trump, some of his actions, but even prior to that, with the Russian war in Ukraine, and of course the extraordinary profligacy of the U.S. government in terms of its indebtedness and increasing indebtedness, just an impossible fiscal regime in the United States. Those are such long-term trends that I just can't see people, investors and governments moving away from the tendency to go off the dollar into other things. And one of the other things, of course, is gold. So that's why that trend is, I think, long and strong. It's why gold is having such a performance right now. And very often these cycles, they tend to feed on themselves. In other words, you could say the gold price is inelastic, or it is inversely proportional to the price. As the price goes higher, it brings in more buying, and that causes even higher prices and more rapid rises. We saw this in spades actually in the late 1970s when gold hit record highs, along with like oil and silver. It went to $50. But today, then it was a very different reason. Today, I just have a hard time seeing this slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that people are always looking for analogs of the current time to the past. And so would you say that the 70s lines up most closely, or are we in just uncharted territory?
We're in uncharted territory. We are in uncharted. This is a new, you could say, secular event. Secular meaning long-term, fundamental driven. And I think, of course, things could change tomorrow. The world has a habit, black swans happen, and all of a sudden the things are different. And of course, we'll wake up at that time and think, oh my goodness, that bull market's over. It's too late for me to sell, and usually it is, because when the party's over, things correct pretty quickly, and everybody's going, oh man, I wish I'd sold. So that's the world we live in.
Yeah, makes sense. And let's take a closer look at silver as well. So case for gold, long and strong, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, but silver, more volatility
Yeah.
coming. Can you explain what you mean?
Yeah, so silver's a much thinner market than gold. It's about a tenth the size of the gold market. Therefore, it's a lot more volatile. A little money in drives the price higher. A little money out drives the price lower more quickly. It has elements of precious metal, money, like gold. It's entirely gold's world right now. But it's mostly an industrial metal, mostly because silver is the most widely used of all metals. It has more different uses than any other metal. So it's a remarkable metal. I could just go on for hours on the incredible uses of silver. It's an absolutely beautiful metal. The most conductive for electricity, the most conductive for heat, the most reflective, and so on. So, but out of nowhere, the biggest demand element for silver today is photovoltaic cells for solar energy. I mean, it's gone from maybe 10 million ounces a year to 220 million ounces a year, which is about 22% of silver's total demand. I mean, it's just an incredible engine of that demand growth. So fundamental demand is industrial. On the margin, you have speculative demand, and speculative demand into silver by investors and gurus who have said silver's market is poised to blow up. Silver is a much better metal than gold. That has brought some money into the speculative market for silver, which is really pushing this bubble that we're seeing right now. Prices that have gone from $35 or so, which are fundamentally valued, up to over $100 an ounce. That's just that little extra bit of money that's making the margin and boosting the price. So in a very thin market. So what's happening at $100 an ounce now? You've got a buyer strike. The Indians, which have been a very, very large swing buyer for decades, if not centuries, because they love silver for wealth. A lot of the poorer Indians wear it around their necks and around their ankles and so on, and they treat it as money for them. They don't buy it. They're very price sensitive, and so they're stopping buying silver for that purpose. They'll come back at some point, but it's just gone too high for them. People are starting to thrift. For example, in photovoltaic cells, they're starting to use less silver per cell. And in other elements where silver is used in electronics, they're going to use less. They're working hard because it's very expensive now. Silver is used so widely in so many electronic products, but there are places you can actually substitute for silver. Not many, but some. And that is where you're going to see, at the margin, you're going to see silver demand reduced. And of course, the other side of the equation that very few pundits ever think about, but as a geologist I think about, and as a miner I think about, is the supply side. Well, it's the same with gold. I mean, gold has been almost supply flat for the last 12 years. It's amazing because you've had gold, go up fivefold. But you're going to see a large amount of new gold production coming on stream in the next, this year, next year, the year after. There's a lot of new supply coming in. But silver is even more important because the new supply that's coming in on the silver side is going to affect a smaller market. And so more supply, less demand, you're going to see a correction in silver. I don't know where it's going to correct to, and I don't know exactly when. It's whenever this frothy speculative market kind of unwinds or comes to an end, you're going to see a pretty rapid price drop. And you saw that, the best example for that would be 1980, 81, when, the Hunt brothers tried to corner silver, went to $50 an ounce. It unwound, and it unwound like almost overnight to $20. Huge drop, and ultimately down to a low of $4. So,
Yeah, I think, and again, a few points to pick up here on silver. So you mentioned people in the East, the Indians, they are price sensitive. They don't want to buy at these levels. I do sometimes hear when it comes to Western investors, when the price goes up, that's when people over here wake up. So
Yeah.
any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I said with gold. It's almost the higher the price, the more people get into it. And for sure, that's the case for speculative buying. That's what's driven the price where it is right now. And interestingly enough, I was looking at some stats on silver just a couple of days ago. Actually, India last year had record demand. So, I mean, this story about Indian price sensitivity is maybe an old story. I don't know. It's been the case for decades. I mean, I've watched silver, I've been a very, very deep student of silver since 1994 when I started Pan American Silver as the world, the focus was to build the world's preeminent silver mining company. So I've been really a student of silver, and maybe things are different today. I haven't seen that, but I actually saw some stats in India which defied exactly what I just said. So we'll see. Yeah.
And on the industrial side, I also wanted to ask about these headlines that have been coming up about substitution of silver in the solar panels with copper being used instead. So you ran through how important and useful silver is. So is that feasible?
Well, silver is still the best conductor, but copper is a pretty good conductor. Silver has other aspects that make it a useful electronic metal, which is fundamentally as a conductor of electricity that is used in photovoltaic cells. It's the usual story. When the price of something goes way up, which silver has done. Silver's gone up fivefold in the last 2 years, so not bad. But that really hurts industrial producers. Now, in most industrial products that use silver, particularly electronics, the amount of silver in that product is rather small. Silver's in your iPad there. I presume it's an iPad or phones, all digital phones, most cameras today. I mean, it's widely used in electronics, but very much a small amount less silver per product reduces the cost of that a lot. Silver's become very expensive, and that hits the cost of all of these electronic products to some degree. It didn't when silver was $20 or $30 an ounce. It didn't really matter if it went up $3 or $4, but it's tripled since those prices. So, yeah, it's definitely causing them to start looking at how much are we using. Do we need to use all that? Is there something we could use that's almost as efficient, but way, way cheaper? And actually, in the copper market, it's exactly the same thing is happening. Copper is being substituted for aluminum.
Because copper is
not as
expensive
good,
too right now. Yeah.
but it's okay. It works in transmission lines and things. So, yeah.
Okay, this is really interesting. So where would you place us in this precious metals bull market? Because typically the narrative I hear is gold moves first and then silver follows. But it sounds like you're laying out a scenario where gold kind of keeps going and silver,
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I am.
So it's a little different than usual.
Who knows if it's going to happen? Sure,
Okay.
This is just my view. I mean, I'm not a pundit particularly, but it's just where I see things going, and take it or leave it.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting. So I want to make sure that I understand.
Yeah.
And talking a little bit more about the silver stocks. So I think a topic at this event for sure has been, well, the silver price has moved so much, so fast. When will the silver equities start to outperform as a group? Not to say that they haven't been moving already. So, yeah.
Well, a year ago, I was whining about the fact that, and 2 years ago even more, that you had this great run in gold and to some degree silver, but the equities hadn't really moved. And there was this disconnect, and it was a weird one. And I, was saying it's either going to revert, the metal prices are going to come down, or the equity prices are going to go up because it's a situation that hasn't existed for 50 years. It defies 50-year trends, which is irrational. And lo and behold, this year, boom, you had this great correction in the equities. So things have corrected pretty well. The silver equities are trading at very good values. The gold equities are trading at very good prices. Huge move in all these metals today. And I don't know that there's going to be a continuing run if the metal prices keep going, but, the things are pretty frothy out there. I would say we are in the, we could have a potential correction coming, and it could be quite significant, quite violent, but at the end of the day, there's still great value in the silver equities. And even if we have a big correction in the price, and even some of the equities, they're still going to be trading at a pretty good price, and the ability for them to finance is strong right now. There's a lot of money in the system, and there's a lot of people chasing the silver names, and that's going to keep valuations at a pretty good level, I think.
Well, and let's use this as a lead-in to talk about what's going on at Equinox Gold. So when we spoke this time last year, I think you told us we were heading into a transformational year for the company. I believe you had record projection in 2025. And I wonder if you can share what's coming next and how does the company's operations change in this type of gold market?
Yeah, we had a pretty good year in 2025, Charlotte. We merged with Calibre. That added another big Canadian mine and some production from Nicaragua. It also made us more of a North American play, particularly a Canadian play. We have 500,000 ounces now a year coming from Canada. It improved our quality of gold production, and it brought a really, really great team of individuals, particularly Darren Hall, who is now CEO, and he's just a super strong individual who's really, really driving value in the company. So it was a very transformative year. At the end of the year, we announced selling our Brazilian assets for $1 billion. We got that money last Thursday. And so we're a little bit slimmed down from the million ounce a year producer. We were just nudging 1 million ounces in 2025. I'd originally, tried to build the company quickly at scale because I thought scale really mattered. And I think in this market, that's been proven to be the case. But at the end of the day, we had a lot of debt. We had $1.5 billion of debt just a few months ago. We expect that debt's going to be gone, completely gone. We'll be net debt free by the end of Q1, which is a pretty big shift in just a few months. And that was made possible as much as anything by that sale of our Brazil assets. So that was why we did it, just to clean up our balance sheet and position us for stronger production in better jurisdictions, easier to manage. We still have 7 mines. We had 11 mines. And that was just, it was a management burden. The Brazil mines were higher cost and more challenging to manage. Great mines. I mean, I just love Brazil. I'm personally very sorry we sold those mines. I really have seller's remorse. But, it's the right thing to do for the company. So now we're producing 700,000 to 800,000 ounces a year, lower cost, easier to manage, longer term production, mostly in Canada, great jurisdiction. 2 brand new mines with long life, lots of upside potential. It's a really nice portfolio right now. And then we have all this growth coming up behind that. We have growth in our Valentine mine in Newfoundland. We have growth, 200,000 ounce a year producer that we're planning to. We should be permitted by the end of this year in California at the Castle Mountain mine. We have Los Filos, which is a Mexican mine that's been put on standby while we try to resolve a community issue with one of the communities that we work around there. We hope that'll be resolved soon. That should be back at about a 200,000 ounce a year production base relatively soon. So full of growth, and it's North American growth principally. That'll take us about another 500,000 ounces a year of production. So we should be around 1.2, 1.3 million ounces a year in a few years, and we're pretty happy with that. So yeah, at lower cost, by the way, and making more free cash flow, and ultimately kicking out a dividend as soon as we can. So pretty happy story.
Well, I think you answered the questions I had because I was wondering about the Brazil operations sale because we've talked a lot about how scale was important, but you've explained that. And so I guess, are you happy with the size of the company now? You mentioned there's all this growth coming internally at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of these sort of deal junkies, I have to admit. I love building a company bigger and bigger and bigger and quickly. It takes a lot of time to actually discover and build something these days, get it permitted and financed and constructed. But there's still opportunity for us getting much, much bigger. We're not looking at anything else right now. We're actually just focusing internally, trying to improve the quality of what we already have. But it's a very nice growth story with or without any new M&A. At the end of the day, though, scale matters. I have maintained that mantra for 8 years now of the company's existence. It does matter. You definitely have higher valuations, higher multiples as you get bigger. And at the end of the day, I'm really trying to build a senior producer, not an intermediate producer. So we're on the way there. We might have got there with Brazil, but actually we have an easier chance, I'd say, of getting there long term with the assets we have right now.
Well, and on the note of jurisdiction, I'll give you a question that we got from our audience, which is whether the U.S. is a safe jurisdiction still. And I think this is coming from kind of an international relations perspective. But at the same time, of course, there's all these initiatives to make mining easier at this point. So,
yeah, I mean, I have to say one of the positive things President Trump's done is he's made it easier to permit mines in the U.S. But even without that, I have to say, permitting is a challenge anywhere. It's a challenge in the U.S., particularly in California. But I've actually successfully permitted 3 mines in California. And once you get your permit, there is no, I mean, the U.S. is the best possible place, the best place to build a mine anywhere. It's just great. There's contractors all over the place. There's people living. Infrastructure is fabulous. I just, I've operated mines in the U.S. for 30 years and actually 40 years almost. And it's just, I absolutely have nothing bad to say about operating in the U.S. Permitting is more challenging, but once you get your permits, as long as you fill all the, dot the I's, cross the T's, you are in a good place to build. And California is no exception. California, I had American Girl Mine, the Zenda property. There's a handful of mines in California that I've been working on. Castle Mountain, Mesquite. We operate Mesquite right now. It's been going for, I think it's been going for 35 years. It's produced over 5 million ounces. Still running. Good future. It's a good place to be.
Well, good to hear from somebody who's done it. And I'll let you go. I know I have to get you back out onto the show floor, but anything else you would leave the audience with? I know that we always talk about mining, but you've got many things going on beyond the mining industry.
Yeah, Charlotte, my world is sort of shrinking in that I am trying to exit the mining business. Equinox is my last company. I've been clear in saying that. I've got a Polish project, which we've been working on in the Lumina group for the last 13 years, I think. And we're going to try to take that public this year at some point, probably Q2. It's got a huge copper silver endowment and a very exciting project. But, that's really that's a heritage thing for me, and it's going to be, I think, that's something I'm heading for the exit on, the same way I was a year ago with Lumina Gold. If you might remember, I had this junior in Ecuador, and I kept saying to everybody, we're trying to sell it, we think this is going to be the year. And sure enough, last May, we sold it. And so we had a happy ending from a Chinese buyer. But really, it's Equinox Gold that is my swan song, and it's still something I'm very much a work in progress. I'm very happy with the market response in 2025 to what we have built so far. The stock market, the stock was the best performing gold stock in Canada last year. We have I think today we went through $18 billion valuation market cap. So I'm pretty happy about that. Lumina Metals, we'll see what happens to that in our Polish deal. And for me, that's the mining side. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of environmental philanthropy still, very, very active in that. Chair of the BC Parks Foundation, where we're trying to work on a huge number of initiatives to help British Columbians with biodiversity protection, health, human health, getting people out into parks, and a myriad of other projects we've got going. So yeah, I'm very busy on that side, a lot of philanthropy, and basically having fun personally.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing, and we'll wrap it up there. This was great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. And once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this is Ross Beaty.